Hi friends, so I'm back again to teach you how to draw a tulip, and this is my overall example, and this is when I started. I'm going to show you how to make these tulip buds. If you remember last week we talked about daffodils. I don't know if you were here or not, but I'm going to show you a tulip. So here we go. Isn't that pretty? So these they look like they have 6 petals, but when I researched this a little bit, I learned that 3 of the petals are actually sepals, and so there are 3 petals and then 3 sepals. And the sepals on a lot of flowers are green, like when it's a bud, but on a tulip, they are colorful, so they look like petals. And again, it has groups of 3, just like the daffodil did, which means it is a monocot. You remember that? We talked about monocot. So you look at the leaves and you can tell it's a monocot too, because all those veins are running parallel. And it's a bulb, so it comes from a bulb, so it's a monocot. You peek inside and we can see very clearly the carpel in the center and then the stamen around the edges with the pollen on it. It's really exaggerated in the tulip. All right, so that is the anatomy of the tulip, and I'm going to show you how to draw it now. You're gonna need paper and pencil with an eraser. And if you want to color it, I'm gonna show you how to paint with watercolors today. All right. Here's my bouquet, do you see that? That was pretty. Bouquet of tulips. We are gonna start though with a very basic drawing of a tulip bud. So what I want you to do is take your pencil and very lightly sketch an oval, but you could even make it a little bigger at the bottom, kind of like an egg. So you have this egg shape. Then what we're gonna do is kind of cut in towards the middle, bring it up like that. And this side, we're gonna come around and down like that. And maybe make the one in the back a little higher, like that. So we're only showing the outer 3, the sepals right now. And this is the simplest way to make the tulip. If you want to add a little more detail, you can add a bit of a divot. Let's see. And can you kind of see how there's like a little dimple up where the vein ends? So I'm trying to show that a little bit up here with this little divot there. And you could draw a very light, kind of like that center vein mark. All right, and then you just make your stem kind of curved, not too straight, kind of long and bendable. Then you can thicken it up and just make lines on either side of that line, like that. And then for the leaf, they have long, pointed leaves, like a big fat blade of grass, kind of. If you want to to get a little trickier, you could make it look like it's curving up and make kind of a wavier line here. Maybe a few of those parallel veins there, like that, and then erase your guidelines. Now, if this is a little complicated because it's harder than it looks, so if it's stressing you out, what you could do is just make the egg shape and leave it at that. And that's still gonna look so pretty to paint. So like you could just try to make a perfect egg shape and make a stem on that. And that is also, it's still gonna be cool. You could do an egg shape and maybe just make kind of like an M on it. That might be a simple way to do it. Now, if you are thinking, okay, that's not hard enough for me, I need something a little more challenging, you could add in a tulip that is opening up a little bit more, and that's going to be a little trickier to draw. So that would end up looking something more like this. And I'll show you how to draw that. All right, I'm gonna overlap it here. If you don't want to try this more difficult style, just go ahead and try to keep drawing some of the buds. And you can make a group of them on your paper, and I think that would look really pretty. You know, kind of like this one. 1, 2, 3. 3 is usually a really good number. It's really pleasing to the eye to make a group of 3. All right, so if you're gonna make a tulip that's opening up more, you can start by making kind of a curved U shape, and then this very thin oval at the top. And this kind of looks like a cup, you know, like a 3D cup. Go ahead and draw your stem. All right, so that's your guideline. And you can come up and come around and make a petal or sepal there. And then you can make it here. Now, oops. Notice that these petals that I'm drawing in the front are only coming up to this line. Right there. And then the back row is going to come up a little higher. So this line on the top is for our back row. Maybe this one's going to come here. And we'll make another one here. I'm going to make one coming out the side here. So what does that give us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's stop there. Now, I don't know if any of you have tulips in your yard and you're picking them, or if you have some from the store. Not all tulips have 6 petals, even though that is their original anatomy, but they have been cross-pollinated and genetically modified so much that there are mutations, and there are some that have 7, some are double, and they almost look like roses. They're really pretty. So they're not all gonna have 6, but that is just the standard. So if you count your petals and think, wait a minute, that's not 6, then that is probably why. All right, so there we go. So we've got like a real simple style tulip here, and this one's a little more detailed here. And then here's our hardest tulip that's opened up a little more. Very symmetrical flowers, but they do have petals that are a little wavy on the edges. So you could shade this in a little around the edge to give it a little more of a 3D look. Of course, the back petal is going to be darkened back in there, dark back in there. All right, so that is step one. That's how to draw a tulip. Oh, I'm going to make some more leaves, tulip leaves here. And just have fun with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it your own, have your own style to it. All right. Now I'll show you how to paint. If you don't have watercolors, you could color this with crayons, and that'll be pretty too. I'll show you what I did when I made this one. So tulips come in so many different colors. Like, there are thousands of different kinds of tulips. So, you know, a lot of warm colors like reds, orangey reds, purplish pinks, coral colors, yellow. Those are all gonna work beautifully. There are white tulips too, but you know, it's not as fun to paint with white paint on white paper. So here are my paints. So you're gonna need, if you do this, you'll need paints and water and your brush. I'm never picky about my brushes, like how big they are or whatever, but maybe a size like that. Yeah, these aren't even watercolor brushes. I mean, these are flat, but I just make do with whatever I have. And sometimes I use like a scrap piece of paper or paper towel to blot out if I have extra paint on my brush. So I think I'm gonna make 3 different shades of tulips here. This one, okay, so this is pink. This is a bright pink, and I'm gonna make the edge the brightest to kind of define the shape of the tulip. Maybe I'll make it dark here too, because this is gonna be a little bit in the shadow of this petal. Okay, now I'm gonna rinse my brush, and I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna try to just blend it out a little bit. So the ultimate goal is to have it darker on the edge and lighter as I go up, and I want it to be like almost white by the time I get to the edge. I'm adding a little bit more dark. So you can always layer watercolors to make it darker later. But you start light and just, you can drag it up. All right, now I'm gonna let that dry before I add any more to it. Otherwise, it's just gonna end up being like a big smear. No. Why don't I'm gonna put red on this now so that, so that it's even brighter. I'm gonna try to make it like a little bit streaky even. Like some tulips have those streaks in them. All right, that's all I'm gonna do for now because I'm gonna add some detail with crayon when this dries. And this is just me and something that, I mean, it's just my style. I'm just telling you what I do. So you don't have to do that. But all right, let's see. I am making this up as I go here. Let's make this one. I'm gonna make this one orange. So again, I'm gonna make it darker on the edges. And when I say darker, like the darker you want to paint it, the less water you're going to use, right? So it's not, the water's just going to wash it out and make it lighter. So more water, lighter color. There we go. And I'm going to rinse my brush and try to create a wash so it's like a gradient, you know, getting lighter as it goes up. The ones in the back would probably be darker. All right, I've got a yellow here. I'm going to use that on the edges of this one. And I've noticed some tulips do have yellow edges. Some have white edges. I mean, there's just so many. I've seen some with red edges, especially the tulips that like the Dutch masters painted had red edges on them. And must have just been a really novel hybrid of tulip back then. So, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to bore you guys to death talking about history, but my kids found it very interesting that tulips were so popular in the Netherlands in the 1600s that they were going for like the price of a house. Tulip bulbs. They were like, what? How much did you pay for these tulips, Mom? And I was like, it cost me like $10 for a dozen. But they're a lot cheaper today than they were back then. They were like all the rage and newly imported from the Ottoman Empire, which is kind of like Asia basically. All right, so now this one I'm gonna do pink again back here, but I'm gonna add some purple to it. So we got some cool and some warm going on. Water it down. I'm gonna add detail later with my crayon. All right, so while that's drying, I'm gonna work on my leaves. Let's see. Let's do these like light, bright green stems here. I like using different shades because I think it gives it a little more depth and interest. So I happen to have different shades of green, so I'm just gonna use the different ones that I have. Just feel like it adds a little more interest. But you know, you don't have to even stick with green, really. Like in this one, you see what I painted blue in the leaves too. So sometimes if you really look at paintings, you'd be surprised like what colors the artist uses. I'm putting right now, this is like almost like a purple, but all right. Okay. If yours is really wet, it's going to take a while to dry, and you might want to even pull out a hair dryer to blow it dry. Speed things along. This one's pretty dry, so what I did when the paint is dry, I took a blue because I felt like black was going to be too strong of a color and even like just too depressing. So I took a blue crayon and I kind of outlined it sparingly and even shaded it a little with the blue crayon. This is probably still a little too damp, so, but you get the idea. I'm just kind of outlining it with the crayon to make it pop out a little bit more. That's not definitely something you don't have to do. If you feel like you don't like that, don't do it. This is your art, and you have control of what you want to do. It's your decision. These are just ideas for you. All right, I'm gonna wait a minute. Maybe while that's drying, I'll talk to you about, I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna show you a painting done by Ambrosius Boshart, who was an artist in the Netherlands during the 1600s when tulips were so popular. And guess what he painted? Tulips. He painted all sorts of exotic flowers. So at this time, bulbs and plants and flowers were being imported from different parts of the world. And this was such a novelty if you had these exotic plants. They were very expensive and a sign of wealth. And so Boshart would paint them. And this is tulip, carnation. I think that's a peony. Got lilies of the valley. That looks like maybe a clematis or something. Those almost look like marigolds. But so it was very like stereotypical at the time to do in the Dutch Golden Age to paint a very dark background and then have the bouquet or the portrait like in the spotlight. So this is lit up, background is very dark, moody, and he's got this really ornate like Chinese vase down here, and they would put things in the foreground like shells, and they would add bugs too. Like there's a butterfly here, and like it looks like it's hard to see for you. Looks like a little wasp or something there. Here's another one of his paintings. This one you might be able to see better. Do you recognize this flower? That's a daffodil. And that was imported too. Here's a spider, and he's got this dragonfly up here, butterfly. So if you wanted to make a bouquet of the flowers you know how to draw now, like tulips and daffodils, you could do that. And if you want to, an extra challenge of, yeah, this one doesn't have the dark background, but most of them did. So these were some examples of, I talked to my kids yesterday about the Dutch masters, and we tried to add things like butterflies, like insects, ladybug right there, and the dark background. This is one I did. It has the shells in the foreground, and you have to look close to find the little bugs. But that's just an idea if you want an extra challenge for maybe if you're an older kid or like a really bored mom and you want to try to do a bouquet in more of a Dutch style. You could do the dark background and the insects. All right, so it's a little more dry. I'm going to keep adding my blue crayon. I never even told you to erase your guidelines, did I? Doesn't even matter. I mean, unless they're all over the place, it's just a sketchy look, and kind of like it, even with the little pencil showing. You can go dark at the bottom and bring it up, and as you get closer up here, you're getting lighter and lighter. And shade back here because this is overlapping. All right, if you guys have questions, please write to me. You can private message me or write me in the comments, and I will answer any questions you have about this. The best I can. All right, so I'm almost done. You get the idea, and I think I might even though this doesn't have the dark background, I think I might just add an insect, just as a little nod to the Dutch artist who valued the tulips so much. Let me see. I'm gonna kind of hide it. Make a little beetle here. See if anyone will see it. Like hide and go seek. All right, I guess that's all for now. Next week I will probably be doing butterflies and moths, and I want to show you guys the difference. And yeah, that's all for now. If you guys do any tulips, please tag me. I'd love to see what you've done and share it with the community. I hope you guys have a great time creating and have a great weekend. Bye.